is Wednesday, and it is April, and what is it, the 20th, 2 days after the tax deadline. Hope everyone got their taxes in. It is again Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. A great day to be alive, a great day to be living. And I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for waking me up for another day and having a wonderful resurrection weekend this past weekend. I apologize. I have not been on for the past 2 days. I've been a little under the weather, still not 100%, but making my way back. This is like my worst time of year, sinus and allergy season. So I'm really going through it, but I'm back today, loving being back with you all. Missed you all. Thank you so much for watching the shows, and hopefully some of the things that I'm sharing on the shows are helpful for you to get through some of those challenging things that all of us deal with in life. And so just trying to provide a little midday motivation, a little jolt in the middle of the day with some tips, some strategies, some information and education that'll just help us through those trying times and help us to stay on track and to get on track and to move to that next level of where we say we want to go. So today we're talking about one of the most important issues in life, and to have a more successful, less stressed life. It is setting and maintaining the boundaries that you set. How to set boundaries and maintaining those boundaries that you set. Boundaries, 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 boundaries. Can't say that word often enough and loud enough because it is so important for our mental health. And when oftentimes we find our boundaries being crossed, we are more stressed. So the more boundaries that you have in your life that you are enforcing, because boundaries aren't any good unless you enforce them. You can create boundaries all day long, but if you allow people to cross them, that means you're not enforcing them. So they're not the issue. You're the issue. You have to enforce your own boundaries, enforce them on yourself, as well as enforce them on others. And unless you do that, then life is going to be much more stressful for you. Because when people cross your boundaries, they're crossing into spaces that you have deemed uncrossable. However, again, are they really uncrossable? Because if you haven't enforced it, that's saying it's okay to cross this boundary. Because people are going to push and push and push, however far you allow them to. So the onus is on us as individuals to enforce the boundaries that we set. And again, not just on others, enforce them on ourselves. When we say we're not going to do certain things, or I'm not going to allow my behavior to go this way, or I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, that's a boundary that we're putting on ourselves. But then oftentimes we cross our own boundaries. So we're going to cross our own boundaries. How effective are we going to be with not allowing someone else to cross our boundaries? So we're going to get into a little bit more specifics of that today, this very important conversation. But before I go there, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're on Full Life Communications on YouTube and Facebook. So please subscribe to the channel, like the page on Facebook, share the feed, click the notification bell so you'll know when I'm on and you won't have to think about it. And like the video if you like the video and the information that's being shared. So this platform, we're giving out information and education. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist. And I am a coach, but I'm not your coach. So if you want specific information, seek your own therapist or coach. But again, this is just information and education. So that being said, so setting your own boundaries. If you're not an assertive person already, it'll probably be a little bit more difficult for you to start doing this, but better late than never. As long as every day you wake up and get a fresh 24, it's a new day to have a fresh start to do things better, do things different. So if you're not already an assertive communicators set boundaries. That's one of the things about being assertive that's so good. And so, but if you're not an assertive communicator, more of a passive communicator, and therefore you don't let your voice be known, you allow people to cross your boundaries, and you may not even have boundaries set, so people don't even know that they're crossing the boundaries. And so giving yourself a voice, one of the ways to do that is look in the mirror. And these are some specific strategies, if you will, that you could use just to help yourself along the path. So you look in the mirror and talk to yourself. You say to yourself whatever it is, the boundary that it is that you're trying to commit yourself to. And so you get used to saying it, and you get used to saying it out loud, and you watch your facial expressions as you're saying it. Because once you begin to set the boundaries on yourself and you begin to set the boundaries on others, you want to see what others are seeing when they look at you. I can't see myself as I'm looking at you. You can see me and see my facial expressions. That's why I say look in the mirror, because nonverbal communication is 90 plus a part of communication. And so people are reading your body. Regardless of what you say, they're going to go on what it is your nonverbals are saying, what your body language is saying, which is the truth. So we always want our verbals to line up with our nonverbals. That's the reason to look in the mirror, to see what your face is saying. And because your face is being read, regardless of what you're saying, the person who you're speaking with is reading your face as well as the rest of your body. So you want to be congruent, because when our words are incongruent, not in a line with what our face and our body is saying, that your words aren't going to be believed, because your body is telling the truth. So we want to be in alignment. We want to be congruent. We want our words, our speech, our communication to be congruent with what our body language is saying. So look in the mirror, say what it is that you want to say to yourself as well as to the other person. So you want to practice doing it, especially if you're not an assertive person already. Saying these types of things can create a little fear, a little intimidation, because you're not used to doing it. So therefore, practice in the mirror often, so you can get used to saying it. So when you do say it to that other person, now you're not as fearful, because you've been practicing it. And it's still going to be a little, uncomfortable, because again, you're not used to saying these things to another person. And it's best to do things in person. I know we hide behind devices quite frequently now, but it's best to do these types of things in person. But obviously, if you have to, say because the person is, a distance away, or because of this time that we're living in, we're not socializing as much. If you have to do it, over text or email or, FaceTime, whatever, that's fine. But the point is to do it, to start doing it, and start doing it sooner than later. And you'll find once you start setting boundaries and enforcing them, that you have less stress in your life. The initial setting of the boundary, especially on others, because of the feeling uncomfortable doing it because it's not what you're used to, it's going to be a little trying for you. But it's not going to be impossible. You just have to take that leap and know that you can do it, and affirm yourself in it, assert yourself in it, because what you have to say matters. Your boundaries matter. And if you're not allowing yourself to do certain things to you, why are you allowing others to do certain things to you? So that's where we have to begin to draw the line. And so you need to sit with yourself and say, okay, where are these spaces and times and things? What are people doing that makes me feel uncomfortable, where I need to set a boundary? What am I even doing that I feel uncomfortable, or some type of way more on the negative side, where I'm crossing boundaries and I need to set a boundary for myself? So again, as we continue to talk about this on the platform, it's a constant assessment and reassessment of where we are. New boundaries need to be created, because based on where I am today. So you have to assess where you are and where you want these boundaries. Boundaries in the workplace, boundaries at home with family, boundaries in relationships, marital relationships, couple relationships. There's boundaries for every situation. And especially in a relationship, the couples need to talk about, what are the boundaries in our relationship? Can we do this? Can we not do that? It's important. You need to have that conversation. Because if not, then people are just going off of what they think in their own mind, and not so much as that they're wrong. It's just that, well, we didn't have a conversation, so I didn't know that you thought that way. Now that I know, now I know how to move forward. So communication is always key in setting boundaries. Don't think or assume that someone knows that this is your boundary. Well, they should have known. No, you should have told them. They're not mind readers, because maybe they don't even have that as a boundary for themselves. So why would they think that that would be a boundary for you? So we don't want to assume. We want to be assertive, and we want to put it out there. This is where I draw the line on this particular thing. And it's okay. It doesn't matter if someone doesn't agree with you. It's not about them. It's about you. They don't know your history. They don't know what's going on with you. They don't know, why you have this boundary. But the fact is, you have it, and you don't have to explain it. This is your life. And if this person wants to be in your life, then they're going to adhere to the boundary. But then again, remember, the boundary is only as good as when you enforce it. Enforcement is key because people are going to cross the boundaries all the time, and not so much to even be, mean or malicious or some evil intent. They're just not thinking. And this is how they live their life. So they're just thinking, oh, I'm just going to do this. But no, remember, I said this is something that is a boundary for me. And I'm uncomfortable when you do X, Y, and Z. And that's okay to say. And if you say that to a person, a few times, they'll remember, like, that's right, that's our boundary. I forgot. And again, it's not always that they're doing it maliciously. They're just not used to you having this boundary. So they have to get used to the new you. Because now that you're enforcing it with them and others, now they'll see that, wait a minute, this is not just a fluke. It's becoming a pattern. Every time I say or do X, Y, and Z with Sharon, she's giving me some pushback to say, no, this is unacceptable. So in a minute, after that happens 2 or 3 times, the person's going to remember, oh, that's right, that's our boundary. My bad. And step back and not do it anymore. So it takes, some getting used to for the other person not to cross it. If you're a person who has not set boundaries before, they're not used to you doing it. So all to say is you have to give them a little grace as they wrap their mind around this new and improved you with these set boundaries. But now if you find a person that's constantly crossing the boundaries and you're constantly trying to enforce it, and it's been a while, then you know what? We have to reconsider this relationship. Because if someone's constantly crossing your boundaries and you're trying to enforce them and they're past the grace period, now I have to wonder what's going on. Because this is on the lines of disrespectful, not honoring what it is that I say is important to me. So to me, that speaks volumes about how you think and feel about me. And I don't want to be in relationship, especially a close and personal relationship, with someone who can't respect my boundaries. Because if you don't respect my boundaries, you don't respect me. And now I have to reconsider this relationship. And that's fine if that's the way, you choose to continue to operate. And I'm fine with reconsidering this relationship. But just know that's what I'm doing, because what's happening now, what's been happening, it's not working for me. You can have that voice. You do have that voice. And as you see how I said, I didn't raise my voice. I wasn't mean. I was just firm. This isn't working for me. And I'm going to have to reconsider this because I'm feeling disrespected because I'm trying to enforce the boundaries that I have set up, but you're constantly crossing the boundaries. And I don't feel good about that. It's not comfortable for me. So I'm going to have to reconsider this relationship. So unfortunately, it has gotten to this point, but I need to feel comfortable with whom I'm interacting. You have that voice to say that. You don't have to be up in arms. You don't have to not have a voice. You don't have to scream and shout. Mean what you say and be firm. That's it. That's confronting that issue head on. People think confronting is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. People just do it in the wrong way to create an argument, and now it's just downhill from there because of the words that they use. And remember, previous shows, like the Sharon Midday Motivation, we talked about using I statements versus you statements. You statements. You're going to start off with you. People are going to feel blamed and attacked, and the conversation is going to dissolve into an argument, and it's going to be off. I should say on, yeah, in a certain way, but off from there. So you have to choose your words wisely when confronting. That doesn't cause an argument, but just states the facts of what it is that your expectations are. And you have that right. So step into your right, give yourself a voice, reflect, reassess of where you need boundaries in every aspect of your life, family life, work life, personal life, social life, everywhere. Organizations you belong to, where do you need to set boundaries? And who are the people who are constantly crossing those boundaries? And so you want to think about why. Who are they in your life? And why are they the ones who are constantly crossing the boundaries? Some people we allow to cross boundaries more than others because they're who they are in our lives. That doesn't mean it's right, but that's the reason why it's happening, because you give them more grace. But those people also need to have the boundaries enforced. First, you need to set them, but then you also, too, need to enforce them. regardless of who it is. But now, again, we assess different people in our lives. Some people you have this particular boundary for, but I don't have that same boundary for another person, depending on who they are. So this is why you have to sit down intentionally and look at those things that make you uncomfortable, those things that make you feel disrespected, those things that make you feel more on the negative side when you're interacting with different people. And so you might even want to just look at each individual, and when I'm interacting with this individual, is there anything that makes me feel uncomfortable or disrespected, or, again, on the more negative side? And what are they doing? And that's a way to figure out, oh, that's a boundary that I have unspoken because I haven't said anything yet. But that's why I feel uncomfortable, because they're constantly doing that. But that's a boundary that I haven't set that I need to. So that's one way to figure it out if you don't know what your boundaries are. Just think about what makes you feel uncomfortable. What makes you feel, uncomfortable in someone's presence. What are they doing? Is it how they speak to you? So maybe there's certain language you don't want people to use. You don't want them to cross that language barrier, say into profanity, because that makes you feel uncomfortable. Well, with this person who uses a lot of profanity, that's the boundary for you. I would appreciate if this type of language wasn't used in my presence. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Simply said, no argument, stated my facts, how it made me feel. I would appreciate you not doing it. Simple. Now, easier said than done if you're not used to doing it, but I say simple, meaning it's not something that you have to pull out some new language and pull out of the sky. No, it's the same words you already know. It's not getting emotional about it. It's just stating the facts and just being firm and letting them know. I didn't have to yell and scream that. Just what I said, that person knows exactly how I feel about profanity just by saying that one sentence and saying it in a firm and assertive way. I didn't have to yell and scream it. It's not necessary. That's when the conversation goes south and people aren't paying attention to the boundaries that you set. Because when we get into that emotional aspect of it, then all people hear is the emotion, the anger, the frustration, whatever the emotion is. And when I'm just seeing that and demonstrated and hearing that, people lose sight of what the actual issue is, because the emotion is so big and it's taken over the conversation. I don't even know what the real issue is, because now I've fallen into the emotion of it, and I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear someone yell at me or be angry like that in demonstration. It turns me off. It turns people off. So they only get to hear what the real issue is. So put the emotions to the side, deal with the facts. You can state the emotion, don't behave the emotion. Just state it. You can say, I feel angry, or I feel frustrated, or I feel disrespected. Don't have to behave it. So when setting a boundary, state the facts. I prefer for this not to happen. So this is the boundary that I'm setting because I'm uncomfortable. That's it. Feeling is uncomfortable. I don't want this to happen. End of story. And then enforce it as time goes on. And you'll find once you do this, you are less stressed, because it's stressful when people cross your boundaries. You walk away frustrated, you walk away angry or mad, depending on what it is. And now you're talking to someone else about what this person did. And you know how it goes. All of us have been there, done that. And thinking of ways, I should have said, whatever the case may be. Begin to set boundaries, and you won't have the back end frustration, anger, etc. Because now you've set these boundaries and you're enforcing it, and people are following your guidelines because you're enforcing it. And now it's like, wow, you know what? I don't feel as stressed walking away from this conversation with this person like I normally do. Because you set boundaries, you've enforced the boundaries, and now you don't have as much stress. And you can't be everything to everybody. So stop trying. Just be you. And whatever boundaries are appropriate for you are appropriate for you. Doesn't have to be appropriate for someone else. You're not living for them. You're living for you. And that moves into what my conversation is going to be about tomorrow, is how to stop people pleasing. Because boundaries and people pleasing, there's a connection there. So when we don't have the boundaries that we want, and people are constantly crossing them boundaries, we're allowing them to do that because we're trying to please them. Well, I don't want to say because I want to hurt their feelings, or I don't know what they're going to do if I say, are we going to lose friendship? If we lose friendship because I set a boundary, then you weren't really my friend in the first place. So we have to consider that. A true friend is not going to mind the boundaries because they're your friend, and they're like, that's cool. And if they've done something to offend or whatever the case may be, they will apologize. A true friend. And vice versa. It's a mutual relationship. Your friend will have boundaries on you as well because they need to set boundaries that fit with their personality, their lifestyle. So it's mutual. We might not have the same boundaries, but everyone should have boundaries. So let's not get upset when people set boundaries on us because they should. Everyone should. There's certain places where people don't belong in our lives. And if we just look at social media itself, I mean, that's social media is a boundaryless place. Unfortunately, that's why we see a lot of negativity and a lot of commenting and a lot of business that's out there that people don't even need to know. But when you put it out there, people can comment on it. But now I'm mad. Well, I shouldn't have put it out there. I have crossed a boundary by putting that information out there for you to comment on. If I didn't want you to comment on it, why did I put it out there? It's all fair game once you put it out in the public domain. But we put too much of ourselves out on social media to be commented on. And now we don't like the comments and we're feeling some type of way. So we have to put boundaries on ourselves. It is so important. That's why I talked about social media last week. Boundaries are so important in that public domain because it can be very hurtful to our mental and emotional well-being, as we see with our young people and not so young, but especially with our young people, with cyberbullying, etc., on and on. So we can do better, all of us, by putting boundaries on ourselves and putting boundaries on other people. But the key is, regardless what boundary you set because you set it, if you don't enforce it, it's no good. You didn't mean it in the first place. Is it challenging for those people who tend to be passive communicators to start moving in this direction? Absolutely. But you can. Start small. Start with the people who it's easier for you to set boundaries with because it's easier for you to talk to, or you don't get much backlash from them. Start with them. And then as you practice it and you say, oh, the sky didn't fall in, whatever it is you were fearing, which is why you didn't set the boundary in the first place. It's like, okay, that wasn't that bad. I can do this. And you move on to the next person and the next person. And now you're building up your confidence. You're becoming more assertive because you're seeing whatever you were fearing is not really happening. Like, oh, okay, this actually is pretty good. And I have less stress. Who doesn't want less stress in their lives? I don't know who, because we all want less stress. And this is one of the ways to have less stress, by being more assertive and setting boundaries, not just on others, but on yourself as well, in all aspects of your life: family, friends, workplace, personal life, social media. Yes, social media boundaries, not just people, entities as well. So that's my talk for today on Life with Sharon, Midday Motivation. Join me tomorrow when we talk about how to stop people pleasing. People pleasing is so huge. So join me tomorrow with that insightful and most necessary conversation, how to stop people pleasing, tomorrow, 12:30. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for those who are going to watch on the replay. The information, like I always say, is good no matter when you watch it, morning, noon, or night. This information is always relevant. Thank you for those who are watching live. I see some numbers up there, but if you don't comment, then I can't shout you out, but I appreciate you watching. I love you. God bless you. And Lord willing, I will see you tomorrow at 12:30. Have a great day. Have a God day. Shalom.